And welcome back to the Morgan Streetman Show. The mics are on, although the lights aren't on. And we've got a very special guest with us here today. Someone who's going to be familiar to our regular audience. Florida Representative Mike Beltran is with us today. Can you put Mike on?
Hello, Mike. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Happy New Year, folks.
Happy New Year, Mike. Hey, you sound great. What kind of telephone are you using to call us today?
I am on just my cell phone with a good earpiece, I suppose.
I'd say it is a good one.
If we have any problems, just let me know if you can't hear me.
Okay. Well, if we can't hear you, we'll let you know for sure. All right. So, Mike, you've got a lot going on right now, I know. And, one of the things you're getting ready to do is you're getting ready for the legislative session. You still got a couple of months before that kicks off in full gear, although I know there are going to be some committee meetings in mid-February. But one of the things I hoped you could do for us today is kind of give us a little bit of a preview of what you're expecting for this legislative session and maybe what you're going to try to accomplish in this upcoming legislative session in Florida.
Sure. Well, yeah, no, that's important topic. So I'm now the Commerce Whip for the Republican Conference in the Commerce Silo. So I'm going to be trying to move a lot of the bills that are going to help our businesses get back on their feet and get the economy going. Although I think frankly we're doing pretty well, all things considered, here in Florida. But Chief, at the top of that list is going to be some sort of safe harbor for businesses operating, allowing the general public to come into their establishments and allowing them to have some sort of safe harbor if they follow generally accepted safety measures relating to coronavirus. So, if you're social distancing, you're not crowding, you're ventilating the space, you're requiring folks to wear the mask and so forth, you ought to have some kind of protection from legal liability.
Well,
and obviously,
let's talk about that a little bit because, I mean, that's an important topic. And, it occurs to me as I was thinking about this topic, you and I didn't talk about that's upcoming, although I know in the news that it is something that's upcoming. It occurs to me a couple of things that occur to me. One is that, are there going to be distinctions between businesses? Because, for instance, you've got, your basic open to the general public business, your supermarkets, your retail stores, those types of businesses. And then you've got businesses like nursing homes, which are quite a bit different in terms of, what their customers, which are actually their residents, the way that they deal with their customers. Because, for instance, in nursing homes, the customer, the resident, doesn't have any control over anything, essentially. They're totally within the control. It's like being on an airplane almost. They're totally within the control of the nursing home. So do you think there's going to be a distinction made between the different types of businesses, or is this going to be something broad?
No, we're not going to do a one-size-fits-all approach, and the distinction I would anticipate would be along the lines you said, Morgan. In other words, we have one set of standards for generally open to the public assumption of risk type of scenarios, which is, just a common law doctrine that if I go out walking on the street, I take the risk that a tree branch is going to fall on me. If I'm going for a hike in the woods, I take the risk that I'm going to trip on a root and twist my ankle and wouldn't sue the property owner unless there's a undisclosed, a non-obvious, dangerous condition. So at this point, sitting here on January 4th, 2021, pretty much anywhere you go, there's some risk, however attenuated, that you could catch the coronavirus. And so that's just a general walking around everyday assumption of risk type of scenario. Now, you're in a nursing home. Obviously, there's a heightened standard of care. You're in a closed environment, and obviously that environment and what you're paying for is that they're going to keep you protected, particularly from infectious diseases. So that's a whole different thing. And obviously the state has a great deal of interest in regulating medical facilities, and we have that power and authority and, frankly, the obligation to keep those folks safe. So that's kind of one silo and one set of regulations. And then there's, I'm going to Publix, I'm going to the bar, I'm going to the restaurant, I'm going to Walmart, when the movie theaters open back up, I guess you could go there as well. And so that's something where if you don't want to go, don't go. I mean, maybe it's not for everyone, right? But you have some control over what you're doing and how you're participating in those activities. And the folks who want to go and are willing to assume that risk, then they proceed accordingly.
Mike, under the topic of strengthening the economy, can you talk about a bill you're working on related to China?
Yeah, so we're looking at this. I will call it the China bill, and it's sort of modeled after some legislation that we had a couple years back that Congressman Gates and others were working on, both when he was in the State House and also the federal level, which was when these companies were trying to boycott Israel. We had some legislation that said, well, if you're going to boycott Israel, that's your prerogative, but we're not going to buy from you. In other words, Florida has a $90 billion budget. We buy a lot of things. We use a lot of services. We have software, frankly, some very bad software, which is another topic probably for another show. But we buy a lot of things with our $90 billion budget. And obviously, foreign affairs is delegated to the federal government, right? We can't sanction China. We can't interfere with interstate or international commerce. But we have the power of the purse, right? Because we spend quite a bit of money here in Florida. And so we don't have to buy from China if we don't want to. So what my legislation is going to do is it's going to target the Chinese government and Chinese companies that have, frankly, been ripping us off for a long time anyway. And we're going to say, unless it's something you absolutely can't get anywhere else and we're desperate for it, which is, certain rare earth elements, maybe some certain pharmaceuticals and other things that we should manufacture here, but maybe we don't, or we don't do it in the quantities that our people need. Unless you really need to buy from China, you shouldn't be buying from China. And that's essentially what the bill is going to say. And by the way, that's a pretty good rule of thumb for going to Walmart or going to Publix or any place, just being a consumer. If you don't have to buy from China, don't buy from China.
Well, if you don't want to buy from China, you better not go to Walmart, right?
Well, yeah, that's the problem is Morgan, is because you almost have to buy from China. If you're going to buy a toy or you're going to buy electronics, or, you almost don't have a choice at this point. And I think that's a real shame.
Yeah, that's one of the things that President Trump focused on, early in his administration and throughout, as he fought a trade war with China and tried to reposition the United States instead of being so subservient to China's interests, which we have been for about 25 years at least since the Clinton administration, the year of the rat, when they sold out our missile and satellite technology to the Chinese, moved the Chinese into the World Trade Organization without requiring them to abide by any of the rules, and began to catapult China forward based on technology that the United States had developed by just giving it to them. So their cost of development of all of their technology was essentially nil because we gave them all of our technology, and we've continued to do that, albeit through the laws that they have enacted and the way that they deal with U.S. companies that want to manufacture there. But by moving our entire manufacturing base there, they've required us, essentially, our companies to turn over the intellectual property. And that was one of the big things that President Trump was fighting against in that trade war, which, came to somewhat of what appeared to be a positive conclusion for the United States. And, of course, we got the coronavirus became a big issue. And some people think and wonder whether or not those two facts are tied together. But I'm glad to hear you're doing that. I mean, do you think that the bill has a good chance of success? We've heard so much lately about how our representatives, particularly nationally, are so beholden to China and have essentially been bought by China. We know a lot of our universities and our professors have. What do you think about, people in the Florida legislature and what's going to be their willpower to stand up to China?
Well, I certainly haven't been bought by China. You check my campaign contributions. It's nobody has to do anything with China who's on my contributions, and if they are, let me know. We'll see if we can refund that money. But so I certainly owe nothing to China. As for the universities, obviously, I was very sad when Moffitt got caught up in that scandal where they were essentially bribing some professors and researchers, but anyway, they cleaned house. They went to open kimono and they came before the legislature, and I spent some time with them, making sure they were doing the right thing, and they did. They fixed the problem, or at least mitigated the problem there. So so we're addressing that, and the idea, in the 1970s, obviously we were beholden to some Middle Eastern countries for oil. We've cured our energy independence. There's really not any strategic thing that we can't produce here. We choose not to. We buy it in China because it's cheaper, or the jobs move overseas because of regulations or taxes and so forth. But if we wanted to, if we had the political and frankly the economic will, we're a big country. We have a lot of talented people here. We have a lot of natural resources, not as much of any particular resource as some other countries, but certainly enough.
Can you hang to the other side of the break? We want to keep you with us here. All right, we'll be right back on the Morgan Streetman Show. Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.